This time I got an SLVR1000 shipped in, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. It's got a broken blue gear, because they all have a broken blue gear, right? Not this one. I was sure that's what it was going to be, but the gear's not broken. Let's see what's wrong. All right, this time I've got an SLVR1000 that was shipped in. Pretty good chance that we already know what the problem's going to be on this one. It's going to be the threading gears, which is a very common problem on these machines. So let me get this unit apart, and we'll get working on getting this one back together and see if there's anything else wrong with it while we're at it. Oh, the gear does not appear to be broken on this one, because normally the guide is loose, and in this case the guide is not loose. So what is the problem with this one? I guess we'll power it up and find out. I was fully expecting this to be broken, because that's what usually breaks on all of these machines, is the left side threading arm is what we find broken. But in this case, that does not appear to be the case. So let's plug it in. And see whether there's something else that's broken on this one. I'll sacrifice this tape. Panasonic palm quarter with DVS 5-minute loop of English and French spots. That appeared to thread correctly. So what's wrong with this one? Well, it does not appear to play. Actually, it doesn't appear to go into the play mode. Oh! The capstan motor's not turning. Well, isn't that interesting? So we have a different problem on this one. And the fellow that sent it to me was so sure it was going to be the blue gears that he even ordered the blue gears and sent me replacement. Well, we have a different problem on this one. We have a problem where the capstan motor is not coming on. I just want to observe. So it's not okay. It's not going. It's not completing the loading cycle for one. We have an alignment problem on this one. That's what I think we've got on this one. Capstan motor's turning. I just felt it. So we have an alignment problem on the gears. Maybe another gear that's broken, and not the blue threading gear, like the cam gear, or the mode switch is either out of alignment or extremely dirty. That could do it too. A mode switch could cause that type of problem. Regardless, I have to remove the transport. The transport's got to come out on this just to get to it. So let's just pop the front off the machine. These SLVR1000s are actually pretty good machines. I like this machine, this mechanism. I have an SVO2000 myself, which is the commercial version of this deck, which has the board over here for remote control and stuff. But these ones were actually relatively well built units, and they don't have a lot of problems other than that plastic gear that tends to break on them. And of course, we all know about the capstan motor here, the bearing that gets worn on them, which was quite a common problem for all the VHS machines of this design that Sony made. This was a Sony made machine. This is before they started farming it out. Looks like this has been out before, because they usually put tape on those connectors to keep them from coming undone, and there's no tape on that one. So let's pull the chassis. Chassis comes out pretty easy on these machines, as we've seen before. We can pull the front loading mechanism out. Just 4 screws to hold this in place. For you guys that were watching yesterday on that, or the day before, on that vacuum cleaner, that Kenmore vacuum cleaner, the belt is locally available, so we may be replacing that belt for the owner of it. They have to decide whether they want to buy the belt or not. And I I told them that they would be a fool not to repair that unit because it'll outlast what they've already replaced it with. But, and I won't make really any money replacing the belt because any idiot can replace a belt. But I'll show you guys how to do it because that's how I make the money, is showing you guys how to do it. Showed you guys how to take it apart before. We'll do it again when I get the belt, which I'm sure I will. The owner of it's just kind of humming and hawing right now as to whether they want to spend the money to buy the parts. Okay, there's another couple screws that need to come out off of the chassis here. One over here. And a couple more over here. I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos myself. When I do, believe it or not, it's not on electronics. It's on cars. That's usually what I watch, is on cars. And I watched one today of some idiot that I don't know whether he tried to cross a river or whether he went in a ditch or what. But anyway, he ended up hydro-locking his AMG Mercedes. That would be an expensive oops. Because a used engine for one of those things is about $12,000 to $14,000. So yeah, it was kind of a fun one to watch. You almost like to laugh at people that are that stupid. You know, don't drive your car through water. Okay, chassis out. We'll just get this out of the way. But it's always interesting to see some of these mechanics tear these engines down, these really high-end engines, and just show the damage that can be done by a little bit of water. First things first, I'm going to inspect to see if there's any cracked plastic. I don't see any on the top here. And then we're going to get into the bottom. And we'll check the timing, because I think our problem on this is going to be a timing fault. So to do that, I need to remove the circuit board on the bottom. The arrow mark screws, of course, come out. And I just need to verify that the timing marks are in the correct position. And we'll clean that mode switch, because that is likely the problem. If there's not a mechanical timing problem, we'll find that out pretty quick, because all the gears should line up with their respective timing marks. And if they're not, well, that's part of the problem. But if they are, then the problem is likely the mode switch is causing it. So I'll put that little circuit board out of the way, and let's look at the timing marks and see whether everything is set up correctly. So on these units, there are timing marks that are set at the factory, and they're easy to see. See, there's a hole in the gears, and there's a hole below that lines them up. So in the unloaded position, there's a hole here. If you put your screwdriver through there, you'll see that it will actually come out the other side of the chassis, and it lines up and it goes through this. You see, it goes through this back tension. So that's how these are lined up. These were put together by robots. So the alignment points all line up. You can do this. They were done with what's called pogo pins at the factory. So all the components were put together on pins as they were assembled together, and then the pins were withdrawn. So that one lines up there. This one lines up here. You'll see it on the top. Comes through the top there. Right there it is. This one here goes through there. There's a hole in the chassis right there. Right, so that's how we line these up. Over on the secondary cam, there's another one over here. There's a hole that goes through the chassis on this one, and it actually lines up with, you can see it underneath here. If I were to take this hub off, you would see it, but it is lined up with that hole. And there's a couple of other ones on here too that are timed, but it looks to be, timing looks to be correct. That hole is correct there. That hole goes through that gear and through that plate, so that's correct. You can see the hole right through there. It lines up with the plate. That one lines up with that hole there. The timing looks to be good on this mechanism. Mode switch, there's a little a little timing mark there, a little arrow there, and it points at a little hole on here. Oh, this is loose. This is not supposed to be loose. This is supposed to be tightened down, but someone didn't do it. You see, that's held together with that screw, and the reason the spring is there is just to put the tension on initially, and then you tighten it down. So somebody's been into this one, and they didn't tighten that down. And I want to make sure that everything else is lined up correctly. That one's okay. We're going to take the mode switch off on this. I'm going to clean the mode switch, and we'll start with that because that is a likely culprit. Just remove that belt. Remove the mode switch. And we'll pop the mode switch apart and see how bad it is. Someone's tried to clean this, it looks like, at some point. But the symptom sure looks like the mode switch is causing it. There's the contacts. We'll clean these up. We'll get a Q-tip and we'll get some deoxit and clean the contacts up on the switch. Give it a bit of a scrape here just to try to break through any oxidation and surface tension. Use the end of the applicator to do that. And then we'll just take a Q-tip and wipe out the contacts and see how much gunge I can get out of here. Now the reason I'm thinking mode switch is because when the tape loaded, when I pushed play, for example, I didn't hear the loading motor come on and the pinch roller did not engage, but the capsule motor was turning. So normally when you put it in play, it advances and operates the mechanism. Almost like this was out of alignment a bit. A bit of dirt on there. Give the springs, give the little contacts here just a bit more tension. Bend them down a bit. We'll put some more deoxit in here to act as a lubricant. Leave it behind. Now people have asked me before, and I've explained this, and I'll explain it again. Most people say, why don't you promote deoxit much? And, well, I'll tell you the reason why. Deoxit has left a very bad taste in my mouth because, as some of you know, maybe others don't, but I won the contest the first year that they had the video contest. I won it. Got a check from Deoxit for $1,000. First prize. They invited me to compete the next year, which I did. I did another video and the results were doing well. And then all of a sudden I get this email from Deoxit saying that I had been disqualified because they had detected that someone had been using a VPN and voting for myself and the guy that was in second place repeatedly over and over and over and over again. A troll, because I had nothing to do with it, and I don't think the other guy that was disqualified had anything to do with it either, but they just contacted us and said, we use software to detect that there was cheating taking place, that someone had been utilizing a VPN to record multiple votes. And that was it. There was no appeal process, there was nothing. It was just, we've made this decision, we've removed you from the competition, and that was it. So I basically said screw them, and I haven't promoted their product. I usually use Neutral because it's a Canadian company. I used their product on this, but I'm not endorsing their product just because of the way that they treated myself and someone else. And even if someone was doing that, it had nothing to do with us. You know, we weren't doing it. We weren't the ones doing it. It was somebody on externally that was doing it. Maybe it was Russia. I mean, we all see what they have, what they have done in voting processes. We'll just leave it at that. Anyway, that's my axe to grind with those guys. I just want to get a close look at this connector right down here. This is the connector that connects the mode switch to the circuitry. So obviously, if we had a connection problem on one of these, it could cause a missignaling. Also, if the board has been damaged, too, looking for any little cracks or anything before it makes it over to this other connector, which is where it signals the microprocessor. I think I'll go over those. This one over here almost looks a bit bad. I'm going to go over these ones before I put this back together. Get my iron heated up here. Another thing I'm going to check is the mechanical linkage. So this linkage here, this is what controls the gears that drive the take-up and supply. When it's in one position, when the motor turns counterclockwise, it turns the take-up or supply spool to wind the tape in, and when it's going the other direction, of course, this lever pulls over so that it can drive the take-up side. And this is what drives it back and forth as this lever moves, and it's moved by the mode switch. There's a clutch in here too I want to check, just to make sure that everything is working as it's supposed to. I'm also going to check the cam gear, make sure that it's not broken, because sometimes there's a cam in here that sometimes breaks, but we'll take that off and check it. Put the mode switch back in. Little hole lines up, and before I push it down, I have to make sure that this is pulled in place so that it can drop in place like that. I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's holding it right, you know. I mean, the pin's not broken, but I guess it's okay. Make sure that my timing mark is correct, which it is. And very important that that screw gets tightened down. That keeps the right amount of tension. Otherwise it can slip. When it's rewinding, for example, going one way, it can pull this forward and allow it to actually slip. So we want to make sure that that is locked in place. I'm going to pull the cut washers off on here just so that I can inspect the bottom side of this gear, see if there's any teeth missing off of here. This is the blue gear here. This one here looks to be, is it cracking? I'll take a look at that too, because it might need to be replaced even though it's not broken. It may need to be replaced just because it's the original type, and I'd hate to send it back and have it break. So let's pull this. I'll look under here, and I don't see anything broken on this. These little pins are still intact to move these levers around, so that's good. Looking at the gear here to make sure there's no teeth missing on the main cam slide, because quite often you'd end up with broken teeth on this gear, either over here, which would cause a timing problem, although that would make the timing go out. I don't see any gears or anything that are broken here. These teeth look to be okay. These ones are always a concern. This gear here, this gear cracks, so maybe we'll take that one out and change it while I'm in here, just because it's such a common failure on this machine that I'd hate to send it back only to have it break down the road, right? So and I think it's got a crack in it. Let's take a look. Let's take a close look at this gear. I do believe I see a crack. Can you guys spot it? Right where my fingernail is. Looks like there's a little crack right there starting. Does that show up on camera? I think it does. That looks to be a crack. So we've got the blue gear. Let's put the blue gear in. Alright, so to change the gear, we'll pull the cut washer. We're going to pull the guide off itself, so we'll remove these cut washers to drop out the guide. And I got to do the same on this one. It just makes things easier. The guides will drop out, but they're easy enough to put back in place. So those two are for the two guides. And now I can lift this one out. And lift out this one. And we'll change the arm on this. It's pretty simple. You just give it a turn so that it lines up with the cutaway here and push it through. Just like that. And then we can just remove the old one, lift it off. You can even leave the spring in place. Put the new one on. Make sure that the spring is hooked into the right position, and then just give it a turn and it should pop right in. Of course it's snapped off, so we have to do this again. This piece of the spring fits into here like that, and then the other side goes under that catch. And like that. Now it's locked into place. So that's that one done. Put that back on like that. We'll deal with the timing on this momentarily, but it's basically almost all the way up at the top like that. And when the guides come all the way back, that's when they are that's when the timing marks line up. But we'll put the guide posts back on first. That one's already in place, so I can just hold that guide in place and push it through and put the cut washer back on. Okay, two guides are back in their tracks. Now we just have to make sure that our alignment is correct, which it's not, because I got to bring this one back some more, so we're just going to pull this one up a bit, pull this other guide back like that to line up the hole, so that this one is, that hole lines up there and that hole lines up there. Now our guides are correct. Now we can put the cam gear back on, again making sure that our main slide has not moved, which it hasn't, because there's a hole right through there that lines up. We can grab the main cam gear again, and while holding this in the unloaded position, the cam gear lines up. There's alignment marks on it as well. They line up with these three pins here, which also have alignment posts underneath here. You got to pull that one back so that that hole lines up. These ones here should sit in place, so there's an alignment hole here, there's right there, there's an alignment hole there, and there's another alignment hole there, and those three will line up with these three holes in the gear, the pins. So when we drop the gear on, the gear goes on just like that. Now I can release it, and you'll see that the holes will line up. That hole lines up with the chassis, and you can see the 3 pins showing through there. And these holes are lined up as well. So now that alignment is correct, I can now put the cover plate on and put the 3 cut washers on. Actually, these ones aren't cut washers, these are just normal washers, lock washers. Put those back in place. And that will hold the mechanism together. Mechanical timing on this is correct. Now sometimes there's other little gear here breaks too, but if this one were to break, you would hear it. You'd hear it going click, 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 click. Because sometimes the teeth right on here shear off. But they don't look to be damaged. They all look to be fine on this one. Alignment looks good. Our alignment marks are there. Timing mark is over here. That's good. This timing mark is good. This timing mark is good. These 2 are good. Let's check the ones on the top and see that these ones are also lined up. Because of course there's the tower gear as well that gets out of alignment. And it looks to be okay. There's a hole here that goes right down through the chassis now. Sometimes this gear breaks too. That looks to be okay. I can see through the gear, through below. Put something smaller through there so you guys can see it. But I can see the hole. It's right down here, directly below it. And that is lined up. If I operate the loading motor by applying 4 or 5 volts to it, probably only 3 volts is all I'll need. I can run this through the mechanism, through its paces, and just verify that everything does what it's supposed to do. Really? You're gonna run whatever the hell you're running just to annoy me? Okay, loading motor. I guess I need more than 2 volts. Make sure that the pinch roller engages and that we're not looking at some broken cam. And it does. Pinch roller is now engaged. And then you can see the take-up spool is turning when I turn the pinch roller. And then it'll go the other way for reverse search. And there's reverse search going that way, you see. Now it's turning that one. So that is working. Mechanically it's working. The problem with working during the week is that's the same time that all the workmen work as well. So I have to deal with people pressure washing and you name it while I'm trying to work. I'm going to solder up these connections on the mode switch where it connects here and this other connection on the back. Just for good measure, because I've got the unit out now. I'm in for a very noisy summer because the city is going to be replacing the water main at the end of my street. Not my water main, that one was done a few years ago, but they're replacing the one on the next street over at the corner. And they're going to be working all summer, so I'm going to have to be listening to noise all summer of them working. They just started it. In fact, that might be what they're doing now. They might be cutting pavement. I'll go take a look and see what all that racket is.
Yes, that's exactly what all that racket is. They are starting to cut the pavement for the water main. Wonderful. The noise has started. We're going to have 5 months of construction every day. Backhoes, trucks, jackhammers, saws, and traffic disruptions. Wonderful. Just what I'm looking forward to.
I'll redo the connector for the capstan motor while I'm at it, just because it's right here. Thank you. Man, that was annoying. I don't know if it came across on camera as annoying as it did to me here, but that is a sound that's like fingernails on the blackboard. See, he doesn't have to listen to it because he's got hearing protection, but the rest of us have to suffer. Alright, time to reassemble the mechanism into the chassis and see whether it still eats the tape. Plug some plugs back in here. First of all, the erase head. Not that anybody's going to be recording on tape these days. At least they shouldn't be. I say that every time I work on one. Nobody should be recording on tape. Obsolete old medium. Well, here we go again. I guess the guy was taking his 15-minute coffee break or whatever he was taking. Maybe he ran out of gas. Alright, everything's plugged back in like it should be. Let's see if we'll get any smoke. Do I dare try a tape? I guess I better hook up the front panel first because I have no control buttons. You see, I'm already making mistakes because of that racket in the background. That is so bloody annoying, I tell you. I just feel bad for the guy on the corner who has to listen to it right in front of his place. I mean, it was right in front of my place a few years ago when they did my street. Well, actually my street wasn't this bad because my street, they just dug the street up. They just came along with the backhoe and they ripped up the road and they put the new water main in and they repaved the road. Maybe they did cut it. I just wasn't paying attention. All I know is that for a few weeks we had, well, for a few months, we had the road all dug up and it was a mess. But now it's nice and new and repaved and I have to fix that. Well, let's see if it plays first. Well, seems like it moves. Wah, wah, wah. What the hell is that?
The competition. The Panasonic camcorder. Notice how the image from his camera is more stable, as if you weren't moving at all.
So what else is new?
Stable even when you're not. And the tape's playing your VCR.
Oh, classic Panasonic VHS commercial. Love it. This was a TV commercial. French version.
La concurrence. Le caméscope camcorder de Panasonic. Remarquez comme l'image est plus stable, comme si rien ne bougeait.
Quoi de neuf là-dedans?
Stop, même si vous ne l'êtes pas.
You see, that was the perfect example of the type of customer that bought a VHS-C. They were old. Anybody who was younger bought an 8mm. Perfect stereotype, because when we sold camcorders, the people that bought the VHS and the VHS-C were typically people in their 50s or 60s wanting to take it for their once-in-a-lifetime vacation. They bought these stupid cameras. Okay, I gotta fix the front panel. I didn't snap it in right, so it's not going together properly, but we will fix that. That'll only take a second. That's a little bit better. Now it opens all the way. It's just the wire that this wire here that connects and it runs down the side and into the front panel, and that wire was just not in the correct position. So that's good. We can test all the functions now. I just tested it on play. Obviously it plays. We'll test all the other functions while I'm at it. So forward search, reverse search, go into full fast forward, there we go, full fast forward, stop, rewind, and then we'll try the high-speed rewind. I don't think the high-speed rewind will actually work on a tape like this because it's too short. You know, it's got the large hubs. These machines had a high-speed rewind feature, but I don't think it's going to do anything on this short tape. I'll have to put a regular tape in for that. High-speed rewind unlaces the tape. So if I hit high-speed rewind, it's probably not going to do anything. Oh, it is. Excellent. And then once it gets close to the beginning, it should lace the tape up and go the last few feet. Although with the larger hubs, it might just, it just goes right back to the beginning. And he shuts it off right when I don't need to talk anymore. I need to take this front panel off one more time because I just noticed a bit of dirt that has gotten on the display. So we're going to just pop this off one last time just so that I can dust it out of there. Oh, it's not. It's actually internal dirt. Okay, well I can't do anything. It's not on the display. It's in the display. So we'll just pop this back together one more time. We'll clean the heads on this one before putting it back together and sending it back across the country. This one came in from Ontario. It made it a long way across the country to be repaired. I get a lot of stuff shipped in from halfway across the country or in the States because unfortunately there's not a lot of people around that still maintain this equipment. So people look me up and send me stuff from all over the place. The shipping costs are higher than the repair costs, believe it or not, because shipping is not cheap. But used to be you could get equipment serviced, you know, pretty much anywhere. You know, in your local town, you had half a dozen repair shops. But unfortunately that's not the case anymore. Now there may be still some shops kicking around that I'm not familiar with. I know that there's still a couple of them actually in town. There are still a few places around, not too many. And some of them are pretty good because they've been around for years. There's a lot of do-it-yourselfers and amateur backyard techs. Sometimes they do more harm than good. Like, as I say, this machine, somebody had obviously been into this, and I know that because, first of all, that belt that had the spring on it and the lock nut, or the lock screw, that was loose, and that has to be tight. The only reason that that spring was put there in the first place was that sets the tension initially to the correct tension, and then you tighten down the screw. If you don't do that, then when the motor spins, it will actually pull on that pulley and cause the belt to slip, or it can even fall right off. So that's kind of an important one that's tightened down. That was done. That was not tight. And the other thing was, of course, at the factory they put tape around these connectors here to hold them in place, and there was no tape on them. So therefore I know that somebody had been into that before. I see what I'm doing here with my other hand is I'm turning, so I can turn that if I turn this, that turns the capstan motor, so I can clean the capstan. Just turn that around and that spins the capstan motor, so that I can clean the capstan itself completely. Because you can see, if you look down here, you'll see it turning when I turn that gear. So I can just turn that and clean the entire capstan shaft. And we clean the lower drum as well. Move the heads out of the way. There. Alright, that's done. I'll just give it one more final test. And we'll pop this one back together and send it home. And I have to love this marketing on this commercial, because they said the competition. Well, this was the competition. If you look in the viewfinder here, it's pointing at this camera, but if you look in the viewfinder, you see Sony, and they had the floating lens on the cameras at the time. They had the active stabilization at the time that Panasonic were claiming this.
The Panasonic palm quarter. Notice how the image from his camera is more stable, as if you weren't moving at all.
No one else is near.
Stable even when you're not. And the tape's playing your VCR.
I haven't seen that commercial in forever. I remember when it was on TV. We got a kick out of it, and then the Panasonic rep, because we were a Panasonic dealer at the time, he came in all hyped up about it and puts it on the machine. It starts playing it in the store, and like 5 minutes after he got out of the store, the tape came out of the machine and it went in the back as a test tape. It's like, yeah, we're gonna play that in the store. I don't think so. Anyway, besides that, we weren't big on Panasonic. We were always a Sony dealer, and you know, I love it. This is the best that they had. This has got 5-axis stabilization. Can't beat it. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.